Hey, this is Tim with the University of Vinyl. Thank you for tuning in again. As always, much appreciated. Today's video, there has been a lot of news and information that's been leaking out and coming out over the last month about audiophile reissues that are planned and or coming hopefully in 2022 if we can get through this backlog in the pressing plants, right? One of the more high profile announcements out there came from Mobile Fidelity. They're going to be doing something about 20 to 30 titles, I think. The entire David Lee Roth era Van Halen series of albums, everything from the debut album up to 1984, they're all coming out as $125 one steps. We have a couple Warren Zevon standard titles that are coming out, standard MoFi titles. Those I think are somewhere in the region of $40 to $50. There has been many Miles Davis reissues announced. Some of those are going to be coming out on the $95, I think, super vinyl, the super vinyl compound that MoFi has. And, there's Acoustic Sounds are going to be repressing the entire run of albums that they've done, their jazz series, the Prestige albums. Lots and lots of things to look forward to. Very, very exciting if you are a record collector in December of 2021. Saying all that, though, it's hard to blink and not realize, man, the prices are really getting high for audiophile quality pressings. And what I wanted to focus on today, I wanted to do a little bit of a 180 and go away from the high price situation and talk about 10 reissues that are hopefully still in print and readily available. Many of the albums I'm going to talk about are still in print and you can find them. But I'm talking about reissues that range in price from, let's say, $25 to $40, maybe $45 tops. And the cool thing about these reissues are, except for one of the reissues I'm going to talk about has been reissued by Craft Recordings. Craft Recordings is basically an audiophile label these days. But the other 9 have been put out by the majors, by Universal, by Rhino. And the very interesting thing about these reissues is they have many of the building blocks associated with audiophile labels. They're using the best mastering engineers available today for these reissues. They're putting out the records on 180 gram or 200 gram heavy duty vinyl records. The records are pressed either at RTI or Palace in many cases. RTI, Palace, and Quality Record Pressings, QRP, those are 3 of the top record pressing plant companies today in the world. So the cool thing about what I'm going to talk about are standard issue reissues that have not come out on the big audiophile labels that we all know about, that can be had for between $25 and $40. So that's today. I have 10 fantastic sounding audiophile quality albums, no doubt about it, that are standard reissues that I'm going to talk about in just a minute. Stay tuned. if you've watched my channel for a while, you kind of know my MO. My MO is I love to find the original releases, hopefully in excellent to near mint or mint condition if you're lucky enough. But there are situations where there might be an album that was never released on vinyl. Maybe it was released in the CD era and they never got around to doing vinyl until the last 2 or 3 years, maybe a record store day release. Or it just might be difficult to find a clean pressing, and you hear about some of these reissues and the sound quality, and it's maybe time to break down and just get a reissue. So I am really pleased that these are available. And again, if I can't find an original pressing, which is my number one love in life, is to find great sounding and clean originals, especially if they were pressed at particular pressing plants and based on the mastering engineers that I know to be fantastic. You've got a trifecta there. But hey, like I said, you can't always find those things, and then you have to think about reissues. I'm going to lead off with 3 different artists today, and these are legacy artists that basically, whether it's themselves personally or their heirs or family who is in charge of the releases, these releases from these artists all sound incredible. You can count on every single release, in my opinion, being top-notch as far as sound quality production is concerned. Well, lead off with Zappa's fantastic Apostrophe album. Now, this is a Zappa Family Trust reissue. The Apostrophe album is one of the better Frank Zappa albums. It's a great entry point if you're not 100% familiar with Zappa and Zappa and the Mothers. You might want to maybe start with something like this. Maybe Shake Your Booty or Joe's Garage. Those are good choices as well. But this is a fantastic album. It sounds amazing. This was mastered by Chris Bellman, and the records were pressed at Palace. Anyway, this can be had today online for between $30 and $40. Some of the Zappa Family Trust reissues are beginning to be a little more trickier to find, so you may have to look around for this, but check your local record shops as well, particularly if they stock better quality audiophile. If they have some MoFis, chances are they may have some of the Zappa Family Trust reissues, and they are fantastic. And these are, if you can't find a clean original, this is definitely the way to go. So another legendary artist that we lost in 2017, of course, Tom Petty. Losing Tom Petty, I guess we've also lost the Heartbreakers, one of the best American bands in rock and roll history. And sadly, they're basically defunct. I think Mike Campbell has got a new band that he's trying to get off the ground called the Dirty Knobs. But, Benmont Tench has been gigging around for years, and he's been a session player on countless albums. But Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers had a particular sound. Those people kind of gelled as a unit, and we're not going to have that anymore. So thankfully, the Petty family are really putting a lot of effort and thought into how they're going to handle reissues from the Petty catalog. Last year we got the incredible Wildflowers and All the Rest in its various packages. I actually went for the deluxe 9 album set, but you can go out and find the Petty and All the Rest. I think it's a 2 LP set. So the original album and then outtakes as well. So that is something to think about if you don't have that. I'm going to show a different album though, and this is the recent release, Angel Dream. And what this is a reimagining of that soundtrack that Petty and the Heartbreakers did back in 1996. Some of this stuff was recorded in parallel during the Wildflower sessions. I think they used a couple different studios because they wanted to break up the mood and the vibe. Wildflowers was recorded over a long period, and this kind of popped up and Petty was asked if he wanted to do this, and he finally kind of relented. He didn't want to do it at first, but this is a really interesting reissue, and it's got some fantastic Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers songs that you don't hear very often. I love also this is a reimagining of the soundtrack from the film She's the One. I can't remember if I mentioned She's the One. That is a Ken Burns film that came out in 96, 97. Really good movie. I think it was the second film that Ken Burns had put out. Anyway, I digress. Why do I like this album? In particular, I like it because it's some of the last recordings that original Heartbreaker drummer Stan Lynch was involved with. So you can actually pull up this album and listen to several good songs that Stan Lynch is a very cool, he had a loose style. And the first era of Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers with Stan Lynch is much different than that Mach 2 with Steve Ferrone. They both have their strengths, and they both serve Petty extremely well, in their roles. But anyway, this is the last album. I think also Tom Petty's greatest hits, there's 2 or 3 of the newly recorded songs that had Stan Lynch on that album. But from Wildflowers forward, it was basically Steve Ferrone. The other thing I like about this is Lindsey Buckingham is singing backup on a couple songs. Just kind of, I'm a big Lindsey Buckingham fan, so I kind of like that. And there are 2 standout songs, in my opinion, on this album. Lead track on side B is Walls number 3. That could have been, if it wasn't, it could have been a single. Fantastic. Typical Petty chiming guitars, kind of a mid-tempo song, great harmony. Walls number 3 is that song. The other song I wanted to mention is Climb That Hill. This is a fantastic later Petty period rocker. Climb That Hill. Mike Campbell's got some very incredible guitar work on that, and Lindsey Buckingham is on backup vocal on that song as well. That's Angel Dream. This came out earlier this year as a record store release. It's now available as a wide release. It can be had for about $22. Fantastic quality. Mastered by Chris Bellman as well. I think Chris Bellman is doing the entire Petty archival releases these days. And I think he did the last 2 or 3 or 4 Tom Petty and the Heartbreaker albums as well. So another artist is a legendary artist, and this guy, everyone knows it. He is a stickler for sound. He is an analog sound freak. He was so heavily involved and invested in the pureness of analog sound that he went and came out with his own analog player, Pono. I don't think Pono is around anymore. Pono. I'm talking about Neil Young. And Neil's reissues are just incredible. I'm holding up Harvest as an example. I also have the Zuma reissue, which is just incredible. And, this is This is a 50-year-old album, right? Harvest. The original releases, they're plentiful, but it is hard to find anything clean these days as far as Harvest is concerned. So I actually broke down and got a reissue, and I'm really happy I did. I mean, everything from the artwork is reproduced faithfully. Um, it's just basically a carbon copy using really high quality materials. This has got kind of the rough texture that the original album did. So does Zuma, thinking about that as well, that Zuma cover, if you're familiar with that. And these are called the ORS series, the original release series, or original reissue series, I believe. They've replicated, of course, that reprise label from that period with the steamship. And that is Neil Young's Harvest. All of those run of albums in the 70s have been put out now. They've been reissued. There's going to be a whole nother tranche of albums supposedly coming next year. But even his recent, he's starting a new bootleg series now. That album that just came out about 2 months ago at Carnegie Hall, 1970, I believe, concert, maybe 71. Just sounds incredible. I did a video highlighting that album recently. Check it out in the playlist if you want me to kind of pontificate more about it. But incredible reissues from Neil Young, and they're just fantastic. So Zappa, Petty, and Neil Young, three of the more obvious ones. I thought I'd get those out of the way first. Now let's dig into a few others. Andy Partridge from the beloved XTC is involved with an imprint, a label in the UK called Ape Records. And Ape Records has been working on putting out the entire XTC catalog on heavy-duty 200-gram Audiophile-quality releases, reissues. And one that I have here, of course, is English Settlement. I cannot stress how fantastic this record sounds. And, you know, this was, XTC is one of my favorite bands. I did an XTC ranking video several months ago, and it changes with time, but I think I did have English Settlement as my number one ranked, my favorite XTC album. It's a double album of all time, followed by Black Sea was my number two at that point in time. They go back and forth. Anyway, this is the Ape Records release. There's that hype sticker. You can see that. I was on Discogs before I did the video. I just wanted to do a double check and find out what's available out there. These are available for $28 and up. It's a no-brainer. If you don't have the English original release or the U.S. double album release, you do not want that U.S. single where they put all these fantastic songs and squeezed them on one record. You don't want that pressing. Go find one of these Ape Records reissues. It's fantastic. There was a record store day way back when. I forgot to look up when this thing first came out, but this originally came out on Record Store Day, and it was another reissue of Rumors. And what I have in my hand is the double 45 RPM reissue that was mastered by Kevin Gray and Steve Hoffman, and it was pressed at Palace. This is the quintessential copy that you can find, that you can have, that you can own of Fleetwood Mac's Rumors. This is the one to have, and you need to find it. Good news, they do occasional reprints of this album, and I actually found one on the rack in February of this year, and when I figured out what it was, I snapped it up. I was recently in another shop, And there is a single 33 RPM version of this pressing as well, which is not quite as good as the double 45 RPM, but very, very nice. And that's widely available. So if you can't find a 45 RPM double LP, look for the 33, the single. But that is that's Rumors. Originally came out as a record store release, and then they did some repressing of it on a kind of a wide release. I don't have the hype right now. I'm not sure what I did with that. I am making an effort to save all my hype stickers moving forward. But very importantly, it had a gold hype sticker, and it said pressed at Palace. If there are other, it gets confusing. There are other reissues of Rumors, lots of them. And if you can't find the one that was pressed at Palace, you do not want that. Of all the albums I'm going to show today, of the 10, this one technically could be qualified as an audiophile label reissue. It was put out by Craft Recordings. You know, Craft is moving into the audiophile realm. They had a couple of their one-step equivalents that came out last year, the small batch, which is an entire debacle that you can check out YouTube videos and go on the Steve Hoffman forum and read more about that. But 1,000, a limited release of 1,000 records of some two very popular jazz titles. Crazy. Anyway, but this is New Adventures in Hi-Fi, the fantastic 1996 double album that REM put out. It's the last album with REM that featured Bill Berry. Bill Berry left the band shortly after this album was released. He fulfilled commitments on doing videos. They did not tour behind this album. This is the 25th anniversary reissue that just was released about a month ago. There are standard black vinyl copies of this widely available. I highly recommend, if you like this album, if you like REM, if you haven't heard this album in a while, go out and get this. It's a fantastic, fantastic album. Some of the best playing, some of the best REM songs up to that point, in my opinion, are on this album. Incredible variety of styles. I did an in-depth review of this album several videos back, so I won't go too deep on this today, but this was mastered. The reissue was mastered by Kevin Gray, of all people, so that's got a lot of cachet. And the original vinyl release that came out is very hard to find. It's well over $100, $150 if you can find one. This is fantastic to have out in print. I highly recommend it. New Adventures in Hi-Fi, the 25th anniversary reissue. There's a really high-profile 30th anniversary release just within the last few weeks that's hit the market. And there's a lot of people talking about it. It's a fantastic reissue. But there is someone out in the VC that I really trust his opinion. There's several people, but Mike from the In Groove recently did a shootout. He does these shootouts, and he will start with the original pressing and start taking a look at all the reissues, Japanese reissues, etc. And he did this recently for Nirvana's Nevermind. And, you know, the 30th anniversary release has really been panned by not only Mike, but a lot of other people on YouTube, the Hoffman forums. It is sounding very, very compressed and just not a good sounding reissue. The good news is there was a reissue that was remastered by Bernie Grundman 10 years ago, I would say. Originally came out on the ORG label. The same metal parts and plating has been used for subsequent reissues. I actually have the Universal Records Back to Black reissue. This thing sounds incredible. It was also pressed at Palace. So this is the creme de la creme. I have no interest in even trying the 30th anniversary of Nevermind. Very, very happy. I picked this up on Amazon for about $30 2 weeks ago. Also, not a plug for the In-Groove, but I did see Mike say that he had unexpectedly just got a bunch of copies of the Grundman cut, which is the one that you want. So that's Nevermind. I say avoid the 30th anniversary. Look for that Bernie Grundman mastered copy, which was pressed at Palace. So back to Mobile Fidelity and the news about 2022 and that long list of reissues that are coming, particularly all the Van Halen one steps. I actually pre-ordered by calling Music Direct Van Halen, the debut album, and I'm particularly fond of Fair Warning, and I also pre-ordered 1984. I have all of those originals on vinyl. They sound pretty good if you can find clean copies. But several years ago, there was a entire reissue campaign put out by Warner Brothers for the Roth era albums. Everything from the debut album all the way up to 1984. And these are still readily available. I think you can find them on Amazon and other places for $25, $26, $27 each, maybe $30. These were cut from the original master tapes, and they were pressed at RTI. These things sound amazing. I have the debut, of course, in my hand. Throw on Ain't Talking About Love. I am going to be really looking forward to getting that one step, hopefully in 2022, because I really want to do an A-B. And I'm wondering, I don't know how this particular pressing by Bellman can be beat, but we'll see. I think it's going to be 45 RPM over 2 records, I believe. So there is a potential there to have this music spread out across 2 different albums, 2 different records on that high clarity vinyl. We'll see what happens, but in the meantime, I highly recommend these reissues by Chris Bellman. Fantastic. This is a 1991 Ozzy Osbourne No More Tears release. Huge return to form for Ozzy. And, this is just, this is an incredible album. This is the reissue that came out in 2021. I think it was actually released in August or September of this year. I would go out and try and find this. I found a copy on Acoustic Sounds. It sounds amazing. It was mastered at Sterling Sound by Ryan K. Smith. It is a double LP. Really well done. Of course, Mr. Tinkerman, Mama, I'm Coming Home. This is an iconic Ozzy album. I did a pretty extensive review on this when I first got this in my hands about a month ago. So check out the videos playlist. You'll find my review of this album. But this is a fantastic release. Highly recommended. Slowly but surely, the band from Chicago, Illinois, Wilco, fronted by Jeff Tweedy, they're putting out reissues of all of their earlier albums. And their debut is a fantastic album. That's AM. I have the deluxe edition, which was reissued in 2017. It takes that first album and spreads it across two 33 1/3 records. There's no booklet or anything with this deluxe edition reissue, but there is a really nice kind of a reminiscence from bass player in Wilco, John Sturratt, one of the founding members who's still in the band, and talking about the recording period, the process. You know, Wilco basically came out of the ashes of Uncle Tupelo. Jay Farrar and Jeff Tweedy just couldn't get along any longer. Talks about the recording, which took place in Memphis. The band was staying in a business-style all-suite hotel, and it's quite a humorous kind of remembrance. But that is another fantastic standard issue, reissue, although it's a deluxe version of Wilco's AM. They've come out with many of their fantastic albums over the years have been reissued. Similar treatment, really high quality archival sleeves and covers, and heavyweight vinyl. In this case, again, mastered by Chris Bellman and pressed at RTI, the gold standard here in the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, record collectors near and wide and far, that was it. That was today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. I featured 10 standard reissues that came out, you know, over the last 10 years for the most part, that are still fairly readily available. Some of these are actually still in print today. They won't be in print forever. Flippers will get a hold of some of these titles eventually. The more that more people find out about these and how fantastic they sound. Secondly, many of these titles are not being put out currently by MoFi or Analog Productions. So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much for watching today. I will be back soon. Enjoy your weekend.